Hey, everybody. Welcome to our latest podcast installment, the Doorstep Delivery Podcast. And I'm very excited to have Andrew Franklin with DDI with us today. Andrew is the operations manager with DDI for just about 2 years, and he works with us and also the industry, and he really knows it pretty well. And the goal today was just to talk about some items that really affect every branch and how to face them effectively, but also in a compliant manner. And so we're going to be talking about things like scheduling drivers, handling no-shows, and general recruitment. And so with that said, I'd like to welcome Andrew Franklin. Thank you for joining us.
All right, thanks for having me, Chris. I'm hoping we can provide some valuable content for all the doorstep delivery branches today.
Awesome. Well, I really do appreciate the time you took, and hopefully we can have a little fun too. But I kind of just wanted to dive right in and talk about, again, an issue that really affects everybody, and that's scheduling drivers while remaining compliant. And so I'm going to kind of just throw it over to you right off the bat and just see if you had any comments on that.
Yeah, so as we all know, drivers are able to provide their own availability being self-employed. One of our tips that we recommend to our clients is get their availability up front on the application during the interview process, and say you're looking for driver partners with that availability, so you can kind of set the tone before they come in and start working with you and let them know what you need.
And when you say have them provide their own availability, are you recommending something written, as in like they are literally writing down what their availability would be?
You could do it on a written form. It's probably a little easier to keep track on. Nowadays, everyone's pretty tech savvy. You could have a Google Drive form that they fill out, an Excel sheet with their availability. I know some of the software scheduling like When to Work allows them to provide that availability, and that would be documented as compliant scheduling.
And so that will kind of give us like the shell of the basic schedule, but I know something that affects people are just those peak times and really just trying to fill those schedules on those Friday and Saturday nights. Any advice on getting more drivers, recruiting more drivers for those shifts, but again, remaining compliant and not mandating that people are working?
Yeah, if you need extra help, really having good relationships with your driver partners as a manager or dispatcher is going to help you out a lot during those times where you need extra drivers. Whether it's employees or self-employed workers, having a good manager to worker relationship, you're going to be able to get more people to work when you need them, whether somebody called out sick, whether you got an extra couple of orders you know that you need covered. Just a person-to-person conversation and having that good relationship can really help you there.
And when and using that relationship, are there any terms or words that you think that we should stay away from? In that, the common sense technique may be calling someone and saying, "Hey, can you work tonight?" Just something simple like that rolls off the tongue. But I know sometimes our own words are our worst enemy. So do you have any tips on just using the correct terminology?
Yeah, you would never want to say a driver was scheduled for a shift. They always provide their own availability. You could say they signed up for a shift, or could you work an extra shift as a driver partner, but you never want to, especially not in written or documented communication, say, "Hey, you're not here for the shift you signed up for. Hey, could you come in and work a scheduled shift today?"
Okay, so just staying around. And any tips on how to say it? I mean, would it be more kind of putting the ball in their court? Hey, we've got some opportunities today. Would you like to come in and help? Would you like to come in and partner with us? I mean, anything like that?
That would work just fine. I think that's some good advice. You could also say, would you be willing to sign up for an extra shift? Would you be willing to make yourself available for an extra shift? That would be compliant ways as well.
If a branch was only needing those peak shifts, any advice on how to work that into the recruitment of the driver from the get-go in terms of is it compliant to be advertising that those shifts are the only ones being looked for, or what about a situation where basically a driver is almost welcome only if they're willing to work these certain shifts?
It is compliant, and like we talked about in the opening, it's good to get this during the application, the recruiting process. You could put in your advertisement looking for driver partners with weekend availability. You don't want to say it's a must in written communication in your ads because it does exert some form of control. Verbally, you might be able to get that message across during the interview, but in your ads you can definitely include looking for drivers with weekend availability or looking for drivers with lunch availability, whatever you happen to be looking for at that given time.
Okay, great. And then one other technique that I've seen people use before is having rock star shifts, or again, something where it's like someone's coming in from 6 to 8, 6 to 9, 7 to 9, something like that. Do you have any advice on how to sort of incorporate that into a schedule, but again, remaining compliant in that? Would it be something where maybe we offer that for drivers to sign up for, or have you seen other people use this before as a technique, basically just having these really short shifts that kind of maximize the profit that the driver can make?
Yeah, a lot of our clients do this, especially when they really need people to sign up for those extra shifts, because like you said, it's going to be the most profitable time for the drivers during those peak hours, and they're not going to have to stick around maybe towards the end of the night where they might not get a delivery, or they would only get one delivery over the course of a couple hours. So this is definitely a great way to encourage drivers to sign up for shifts when you're struggling, or you have some extra business coming in that night that you need help with.
Okay, great. So for a branch, I would say one piece of advice is highlighting when that rock star period would be, and it's generally the same for everybody. I mean, your dinner rush, some will be a little later than others, and then just making it known that it's an option. And I guess you just want to walk that fine line of, you don't want everybody using that option, but at least kind of keeping it reserved for almost, I would say, garnishing whatever schedule you already have in place.
Especially say you need 10 people for that shift and you're only at 8, maybe you could offer that rock star shift to 2 people just so you're at least covered for that couple hour period.
Okay, great. Now, we kind of touched on it that one of the things that can put us in a bad situation is sometimes people have a schedule that seems like it's going to give them coverage, and then suddenly there are no-shows. And I think no-shows are a tough one in the world of compliance, in that truly the driver has the ability, I would say, to no-show, and especially if they do it respectfully and timely, or at least makes the attempt to reach out to us and let us know they won't be available. Any tips on how to handle that long term, in terms of if a driver is perpetually doing that, what options do we have to sort of protect ourselves?
Well, in terms of communicating with the drivers, you just keep in mind you never want to say, we're going to fire you if you're late again, or we're going to fire you if you don't show up again. The way you can phrase it is, businesses want to work with reliable partners. If you do not show up for a shift, it hurts both us and the other drivers that you work with. So if your quote times are way up and you're not getting as many deliveries, that's going to hurt not only doorstep delivery, but the other drivers that are working that possibly might miss out on a large order that a customer didn't place because they were going to have to wait an hour and a half for it. So you really approach it from a business-to-business relationship standpoint, because that's what the drivers are for you. They're partners.
And so with that said, I mean, any general advice on limiting no-shows from the get-go? And again, there's only so much we can do, but any way that you've seen other clients sort of tackle it to prevent it before it happens?
Again, like we talked about earlier, relationship building is the best way to prevent, manage, and overcome these situations with any type of worker. I'm sure we've all worked in jobs or maybe management positions where employees call out too, or fail to call out and just no call, no show, and you still as a manager have to be able to overcome that. So if you build a quality relationship with not only the driver who calls you to no show, who might give you an extra couple hours notice that you would get from somebody who you don't have a good relationship with, but then you'd also have those other drivers to pull on to help out to possibly call in and cover that shift.
So relationship building is sort of just a term that we've gone back to a couple times, and I like to almost call it human to human, in that I think, I've been on the other side too, where you're a dispatcher and it's busy and you really feel screwed and the driver can't make it in, and it almost becomes a case where the drivers are pawn pieces on the chessboard as opposed to human beings. And so I think that is one thing to kind of highlight is that the stronger the personal relationship you can be building with these humans and these people who are businesses but have decided to partner with us, the stronger results we can kind of see across the board.
I agree, and that it'll help your business across all fronts. Like if the driver partner's happy to work with you and they feel welcomed, respected, appreciated, they're going to provide better customer service to the customers ordering through doorstep delivery.
Okay, great. And now, that's all well and good, but sometimes it's going to escalate and sometimes it's going to be time to part ways. Any advice on any of those like difficult conversations that we may have to have with a driver that, again, almost become a little more difficult because it needs to be done compliantly?
Yes. This is where a lot of our claims come from that we get from clients across the country is documented conversations when the relationship is soured or when it ends. So you always want to handle these conversations over the phone or in person. A lot of times they'll start or have the entire conversation over text message, email, or through the driver app. That's all communication that the driver can access after the relationship is over and use that as documentation against you. Even if you slip up and say one wrong word, that's enough to get an audit started. And we don't want that. I'm sure the doorstep delivery branches don't want that. If you guys ever need help with a escalated driver situation, we're happy to coach you through it. Reach out to your DDI account manager, Ernesto Martinez. He handles all the doorstep delivery branches, and we're happy to walk you through on a case-by-case basis.
I think that is just great advice about, especially the texting and the driver app. You're on our dispatch screen. I'm doing a little doorstep terminology here, and you're texting with the driver, and it's so easy, but you got to almost assume that someone else will be looking at it at some point. And just like you said, it could be as simple as one sentence or one word that kind of gets us in trouble. But if you are typing in these terms here, or again, even getting into heated exchanges with the driver, you should almost assume that someone else is going to be looking at it, whether it be the state in an audit, whether it be somebody legal. And again, I think that's just really great advice, that you just don't want to say something in the heat of the moment that'll come back to really hurt you.
Agreed. We've had a lot of unfortunate scenarios where that's been the case. Technology nowadays, drivers can screenshot those conversations instantly. You wouldn't have to get your logs subpoenaed. There wouldn't have to be any court orders issued. Most of what we see are just screenshots on iPhone or Android.
Well, I think that is just phenomenal advice. So then after that, I kind of just wanted to go just maybe take a step back and just talk about general recruitment in general. I've been with Doorstep for 10 years, and recruitment is always a challenge in terms of just the nature of the business. Do you have any advice as far as that comes with regard to effective marketing for finding drivers, ads that you've seen worked, or maybe outlets that have been more productive than others?
Yes, so one thing I would start off by saying is every market's different. So what we use in one market is not going to work necessarily in another one, despite how great the ad is, despite the content, what we're selling. It might not work in market to market. So you're going to have to take a look at different ad resources locally and on a national level. I mean, I'm sure we've all done the Craigslist, the Indeed, but you really have to dive in, especially during those tough times, and look for some local boards. Maybe try some older methods such as flyers or posting at local community colleges. I'm sure we all have different ideals of what our driver profile would be in terms of experience, availability, requirements. So you really just need to diversify your ads as much as you can.
Any advice on, when we talk about the ads, I think that this is also a very vulnerable opportunity for us to make a mistake in terms of terminology and just verbiage in general. Have you seen some specific terms, or I don't know, just things that people do over and over again that are not compliant when doing their ads?
One that comes to mind right away would be working for doorstep delivery. You would never want to say that the driver works for you, and I've seen that in a lot of ads, maybe not necessarily doorstep delivery ones, but other companies across the country that place ads for drivers that aren't employees. So you want to say that you could work with doorstep delivery because they would be a driver partner. But the drivers, and especially not in the advertisement, again, that's a form of print that could be used against you. You don't want to say they would work for you.
Okay. And then I would also think, like, with regard to something like, drivers make X amount per shift, is there a way to say that in a compliant way?
Yes, so you could say drivers average X amount per shift, or you can make up to this much. You don't want to guarantee any wages, so you wouldn't want to say delivery drivers $15 an hour.
Okay, great. And then with regard to actually having the driver on the hook, any advice as far as, I know some people like to start with a phone interview and then have the driver actually come in if it seems like it's a fit. Some people have them come in right away. I mean, anything that you've seen that sort of seems most effective as far as actually interacting with the lead, with the potential partner?
Yeah, so I would try to get as much of that initial typical interview stuff out of the way as early as possible. So asking them about their work experience, their availability. I know most companies use the online sign-up forms now, so you kind of screen people out before you even speak with them. I would get as much of that out of the way prior to speaking with the driver as you can. And then once you're talking to them, sell them on why they should work with you. What are the benefits of working with doorstep delivery? You have a flexible schedule. You can make up to this much money. You network with local restaurants around town, and you're going to know that better than anyone else for each specific market. Really sell them on why they should be working with you instead of just interviewing them.
Okay, great. And then let's say that I've got the driver standing in front of me. Any advice as far as that goes?
Yes, so you want to have them complete the paperwork with DDI as soon as possible. So you should all have access to send the paperwork from your logins. You should be able to log in and enter the driver's name, phone number, and email, and they will instantly be sent the paperwork, regardless of if someone at DDI is here. It's an automated send-out. If anyone on the call does not, or on the podcast does not know how, please reach out to Ernesto, and he can get you trained up on that as soon as possible. But limiting the amount of time between when the driver meets with you, they get their paperwork, and they complete it is imperative. Drivers are going to drop out at every step in the process, so if you can condense that down, have them complete the paperwork in the office, whether it's on a computer you have there. It's all smartphone friendly, so they can do it on their phone in 5 minutes or less.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. I think you're right that you should strike while the iron is hot, so they say.
Exactly.
So the last thing I just would like to look at is ways that we can incentivize drivers, potentially give bonuses or rewards, or involve certain triggers with regard to payment, but again, do it in a compliant way. And I think that this is something that could potentially be attractive for people listening, because you really do want to reward the drivers who are reliable, and also sort of set up a barrier that kind of doesn't reward the ones that aren't. And so do you have any advice as far as, again, bonuses or triggers or anything like that with regard to payment?
Yeah, so you are right to be wary of the compliance in enacting one of these programs. The word bonus itself is going to be viewed by an auditor as being non-compliant and related with employment. So any program you put in place, it must be objective. It can't be like an Employee of the Month program where you would pick somebody based on their body of work in your eyes. So you could do, if a driver makes 100 deliveries during the course of a month, they would be entered into a drawing. Or if they work 25 shifts during a month, they could be entered into a drawing. You're not going to want to use cash as a prize. Use a doorstep gift card or a gas card. We all know they're going to need the money for gas driving around while they're working. You want to do drawings if you can, so every driver who reaches that threshold, maybe you pick 3 every month. But set those thresholds, make sure they're clearly documented, it's not changing, and that the drivers understand.
Okay, great. So this is a good point. So, because I think I've probably seen it today, driver of the month would be a very bad term, but having a loyalty program or some sort of drawing or prize associated with a loyalty partner program, that would be more compliant?
Yes, that's a perfect way to word it. just like if you go, I'm sure your local grocery store where you shop for clothing, they typically have reward programs too. I mean, these drivers are paying you the marketing fee on each delivery. You're going to get more money off them the more deliveries they make, the more often they work. So you look at it as a good partner drawing or a loyalty program, like you said.
Okay, great. And then what about using, I guess, basically taking away fees as a form of reward? Looking at something like waiving bag fees or, equipment rental, is that compliant to include that?
In terms of if a driver works all their shifts they signed up for during the week, their equipment fees would go down? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's for working a certain number of shifts. Maybe it's for actually showing up in a timely manner, not making mistakes. But yeah, something down that road.
I would be really careful how you structure that. I would keep it tied into working all the shifts they signed up for, making X amount of deliveries. So again, it is completely objective. But that's okay, just like we talked about with them paying you more marketing fees the more they work, they're going to be using the equipment more and paying you more often for it if they're there 5 shifts a week. So that's okay. We just need to be really careful how we structure that program.
And again, I think you've said it a couple of times now, but the key word is objective. And so if the trigger is working 4 shifts a week, then that should apply to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then the last thing that I just want to touch on was just as far as the agreed amount with the driver. As we all know, they're self-employed. They have the ability to negotiate higher. In fact, I think to some degree when a driver does negotiate higher, it actually serves us well in the long run because if anything, it just validates our model. But do you have any opinion on drivers who walk in the door and are potentially starting at a lower agreed rate and then have it bump up at a certain point or based on a certain trigger? Is that something you've seen before, and is there a way to do it in a more compliant way, than others?
Yeah, so it's great, like you said, to have drivers at different rates. If an auditor walked in or anybody evaluating the relationship with the workers and saw that they were all making the exact same, that's not going to hold up. It's great that drivers make different rates. It's great that they negotiate their own rates. They walk into your office and say, I think I deserve 25 cents more per delivery. Again, just like we were with the other programs, you would have to be incredibly careful how you structure this. You wouldn't want to say after 90 days we'll take a look and see and adjust your rate accordingly. If you're bringing them in at that lower rate, I would just be careful. So when you bring them in, tell them what the rate's going to be. Say, after you work with us for a while, we'll take a look and we can readjust your rates that you're paying the doorstep delivery then. You want to be careful avoiding things like 30-day review, 90-day review that are typically associated with employment where people get raises. So in
this case, this is actually one where maybe we're a little better off being, less objective, and I think in this case maybe less defined in terms of what you're saying.
A little more vague.
Yeah, a little more vague. So instead of it being a 30-day, if you maybe make a note to yourself, hey, in 30 days, pull this driver aside and talk to them, and if it seems to be going well, then start the conversation, or vice versa, have them welcome to do it, but stay away from the formality of it, I would say.
Yes, that would be a great way to approach it. And stay away from having it in documents too. Don't give the driver an orientation packet with says that we'll look into your rates after working with us for a couple months.
Okay, I think that's very good advice. And Andrew, I'll tell you, that is all that I have, and I think that's it for timing. I know that you were a little nervous about hitting the 10-minute mark, but I think we easily exceeded it. So I thank you for that. It's a lot easier once you start diving into it. But really, Andrew, I do appreciate your time. This was great to get you on, and it was great to be able to sort of let you speak to the whole company at once, even if they're not on the line. And so I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. I'm happy to come back anytime. Again, just for everybody listening, feel free to contact myself or your DDI account manager, Ernesto Martinez, with any questions or follow-ups from what we spoke about today, and Chris and I are happy to help too.